Uruguay, 1930. The first champions. The World Cup was born in 1930, hosted by Uruguay to celebrate the nation's centenary of independence. Football was already booming in South America, and Uruguay had just won Olympic gold in 1924 and 1928. Now, they wanted to prove themselves on a truly global stage. Only 13 teams participated, most from the Americas, since European travel was long and expensive. Matches were played in Montevideo, with the brand-new Estadio Centenario standing like a temple of football. The tournament climax came with the final, Uruguay versus Argentina, a fierce rivalry even then. Argentina led 2-1 at halftime, but Uruguay turned the game around, winning 4-2 in front of nearly 90,000 fans. The celebrations shook the city. The champions were paraded as national heroes. Uruguay had written history as the first ever World Cup winners. A small nation of barely 3 million people showed the world that greatness in football isn't about size, but spirit. The era of the World Cup had begun. Italy, 1934 and 1938, back-to-back champions under Mussolini. Just 4 years after Uruguay's triumph, the World Cup crossed the Atlantic. Italy hosted the 1934 tournament, and under Benito Mussolini's fascist regime, football became a tool of propaganda. For the first time, qualifying rounds were held, with 32 nations competing for 16 spots. Italy, led by coach Vittorio Pozzo, combined tactical discipline with physical strength. In the final, they defeated Czechoslovakia 2-1 in Rome, after extra time, to claim their first crown. 4 years later, in 1938 in France, Italy defended their title. With many stars returning, including Giuseppe Meazza, they overcame Hungary 4-2 in the Paris final. Mussolini's influence loomed large. Reports suggest referees were pressured to favor the Italians. Still, on the field, Pozzo's side showed resilience and structure that were ahead of their time. Italy became the first nation to win back-to-back World Cups. But as Europe descended into war, the tournament would be put on hold for 12 years. Uruguay 1950. The Maracanazo. After a 12-year break due to World War II, the World Cup returned in 1950, hosted by Brazil. The tournament had a unique format, with a final group stage instead of a single final match. But destiny created one of football's greatest dramas. On July 16, 1950, Brazil faced Uruguay at the brand-new Maracanazo Stadium in Rio, built to showcase Brazilian dominance. Over 200,000 fans filled the stands, already celebrating what seemed inevitable, a home victory. Brazil took the lead early in the second half, but Uruguay stunned the world. Goals from Juan Alberto Schiaffino and Alcides Giggia turned the match around, sealing a 2-1 win. The result shocked a nation. The Maracanazo became a national trauma for Brazil, a reminder that football can humble even the proudest. For Uruguay, it was glory once again. A nation of 3 million people had now lifted the World Cup for a second time, confirming their place as early giants of the game. West Germany, 1954. The Miracle of Bern. The 1954 World Cup in Switzerland produced one of the most famous upsets in football history, the Miracle of Bern. The clear favourites were Hungary's mighty Magyars, led by Ferenc Puskás. They had been unbeaten for 4 years, had destroyed England 6-3 at Wembley, and crushed West Germany 8-3 in the group stage. But the final told a different story. On July 4th in Bern, Hungary stormed ahead 2-0 within 8 minutes. Yet West Germany, under coach Sepp Herberger, refused to collapse. Goals from Max Morlock and Helmut Rahn levelled the game, and in the 84th minute, Rahn scored again, 3-2. Against all odds, West Germany were world champions. The victory symbolized national recovery after the devastation of World War II and gave the German people pride again. For Hungary, it was tragedy. Despite their brilliance, they never won a World Cup. For Germany, it was the beginning of a dynasty that would shape the tournament's history. Brazil 1958 and 1962, the rise of Pelé. The 1958 World Cup in Sweden introduced the world to a 17-year-old prodigy, Pelé. Brazil had suffered heartbreak in 1950, but now they arrived with a team blending flair and steel. After beating France 5-2 in the semi-final, Pelé scored a hat-trick in the final against Sweden. Brazil won 5-2, claiming their first World Cup and unveiling a new style of football: joyful, attacking, beautiful. 4 years later, in 1962 in Chile, Brazil proved it wasn't a fluke. Even with Pelé injured early in the tournament, stars like Garrincha, with his dazzling dribbles, carried the team. Brazil defeated Czechoslovakia 3-1 in the final, becoming only the second team after Italy to defend the title. These victories marked the start of Brazil's identity as the kingdom of football. Pelé had announced himself to the world. Garrincha had enchanted fans, and Brazil stood as the new standard for style and excellence on the global stage. England 1966. Football comes home. In 1966, the World Cup finally came to the birthplace of the game, England. With matches staged across the country, the final at Wembley became a national epic. England, led by manager Alf Ramsey, built a team on discipline and balance. Captain Bobby Moore anchored the defence, while striker Geoff Hurst made history. In the final against West Germany, England took a 3-2 lead in extra time after Hurst's controversial "did it cross the line" goal. To this day, debates rage over whether the ball fully crossed. Moments later, with fans streaming onto the pitch, Hurst scored again, completing his hat-trick, the only one ever in a World Cup final. England won 4-2, their first and only World Cup title. For the hosts, it was football finally coming home. For the rest of the world, it was the moment England etched their name into history. Brazil 1970. Pelé's eternal glory. The 1970 World Cup in Mexico is remembered as one of the most beautiful displays of football ever played. It was also the stage where Pelé became eternal. At 29, playing his last World Cup, he led a Brazil team often considered the greatest of all time. Alongside Jairzinho, Tostão, Rivellino, and Carlos Alberto, Brazil played with freedom, flair, and breathtaking skill. In the final against Italy, Pelé opened the scoring with a towering header. Brazil went on to win 4-1, with Carlos Alberto finishing the rout after a legendary team move, perhaps the most famous goal in World Cup history. With this triumph, Brazil became the first nation to win 3 World Cups, and Pelé the only player to lift the trophy 3 times. The 1970 team defined the image of "O Jogo Bonito," the beautiful game, and Pelé cemented his status as the king of football. 1974 and 1978, West Germany and Argentina's rise. The 1974 World Cup in West Germany introduced a clash of philosophies. On one side stood the Netherlands, led by Johan Cruyff and their revolutionary total football. On the other, the efficient, disciplined hosts. In the final, the Dutch scored within 2 minutes, without Germany even touching the ball. But West Germany, driven by captain Franz Beckenbauer and striker Gerd Müller, fought back. Müller's winner sealed a 2-1 victory, giving West Germany their second World Cup. 4 years later, in 1978, the tournament moved to Argentina under a turbulent military dictatorship. Amid political tension, Argentina found glory on the pitch. Led by Mario Kempes, who scored twice in the final, Argentina defeated the Netherlands 3-1 after extra time. It was their first ever World Cup title, celebrated wildly across Buenos Aires. These two tournaments symbolized the 1970s, tactical revolutions, political backdrops, and the rise of new footballing powers. Italy, 1982. Paolo Rossi's redemption. The 1982 World Cup in Spain gave us one of football's great redemption stories. Italy arrived under pressure, with striker Paolo Rossi returning from a suspension that left him doubted by many. The group stage was shaky, with 3 straight draws, but Italy advanced. Then Rossi exploded into life. Against the mighty Brazil, led by Zico and Socrates, Rossi scored a stunning hat-trick in a 3-2 victory, eliminating the favourites in one of the greatest World Cup matches ever. In the semi-final, he scored twice against Poland, and in the final against West Germany, Rossi struck again, opening the scoring in a 3-1 win. From outcast to hero, Rossi finished as top scorer and best player of the tournament. Italy lifted their 3rd World Cup, joining Brazil as the only 3-time winners at the time. For Italians, 1982 was not just a triumph, it was a resurrection. 1986 and 1990. Maradona's glory and German revenge. The 1986 World Cup in Mexico belonged to one man, Diego Maradona. In the quarter-final against England, he delivered 2 of the most famous goals ever scored. First, the cunning hand of God. Then the breathtaking solo run, known as the goal of the century. Maradona carried Argentina all the way to the final, where they beat West Germany 3-2. 4 years later, in 1990 in Italy, the two nations met again in a rematch. This time, it was a gritty, defensive tournament, remembered for red cards and narrow victories. The final in Rome ended with West Germany winning 1-0, thanks to a late penalty from Andreas Bremer. It was West Germany's 3rd World Cup, equaling Italy and Brazil at the time. These two finals defined an era, Maradona's genius lifting Argentina in 1986, and Germany's relentless discipline reclaiming the crown in 1990. 1994 to 2002, Brazil's modern dominance. The 1994 World Cup in the USA brought Brazil back to the top. In a tense final against Italy, the match ended 0-0 after extra time. For the first time, a World Cup final went to penalties. Roberto Baggio's miss gave Brazil their 4th title, led by Romário and Bebeto. In 1998 in France, Brazil returned to the final, but fell 3-0 to the hosts, with Zinedine Zidane scoring twice. Yet redemption came in 2002. Hosted in Japan and South Korea, the tournament showcased Brazil's new hero, Ronaldo. After a mysterious collapse before the 1998 final, Ronaldo returned with vengeance, scoring 8 goals, including 2 in the 2-0 final against Germany. With that, Brazil secured their 5th World Cup, more than any other nation. Across this era, Brazil defined attacking flair, with legends like Cafu, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho dazzling fans. From Romário to Ronaldo, the Seleção proved why they are forever known as the country of football. 2006 to 2022. The recent era. The 21st century brought new champions and shifting powers. In 2006, Italy claimed their 4th World Cup in Germany, defeating France on penalties after Zidane's infamous headbutt in the final. In 2010, Spain reached the summit in South Africa, playing their iconic tiki-taka. Andrés Iniesta's extra-time strike delivered Spain's first-ever World Cup. 4 years later, in 2014, Germany stunned hosts Brazil with a historic 7-1 semi-final, before beating Argentina 1-0 in the final, thanks to Mario Götze's goal. Then came 2018, when France lifted their 2nd trophy in Russia. With Kylian Mbappé shining at just 19, they beat Croatia 4-2 in the final, blending youth and power. Finally, in 2022, Argentina returned to glory in Qatar. Lionel Messi, after years of chasing the crown, led Argentina past France in a dramatic 3-3 final, decided on penalties. For Messi, it was immortality. For Argentina, a third star. For the World Cup, the perfect modern finale. From glory to heartbreak, every champion has written their chapter in history. But football is never just about triumphs. In our next lesson, every football controversy at the World Cup explained. Don't miss it, students of the beautiful game.